Hi, this is Zach Houghton. This is episode number 3 of the Speed for Your Mind podcast. Today we have Ralph Patrella. He's the Director of Sports Performance for women's basketball at the University of Minnesota. Ralph, how you doing?
Doing well, sir. How about you?
I'm good. All right. Before we start, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I grew up in a little town, Steubenville, Ohio, little steel mill town, about 20,000. From there, I did my undergrad at West Liberty University, a D2 school in West Virginia, where I played college football and started my interning career. After there, I was an intern at Robert Morris with Todd Hammer, and then I was lucky enough for him to ask me to stay on. My first teams were cheering and dance, tennis. Being a college football player, he really decided that I needed something outside of my comfort bubble, so he gave me them, and then I got soccer's, which really expanded my horizons as a strength coach. Spent 2 years at Robert Morris working with that. We trained all teams, so I helped with football at the O&D lines, helped with men and women's basketball at that time. From there, I got a job at Virginia Commonwealth University with Tim Contos, another legend in the game, and had women's basketball, the track throwers, and field hockey. Spent 2 years there. Then I moved into a director role where I was a director of sports performance for women's basketball. Had that position for about a month, and then got this position here with women's basketball with my coach that was at VCU. And I really am thankful for her. She brought me along with her, and we've been in it together ever since. And there's no one, in my opinion, better in the game of women's basketball than her. And I know she's young and up and coming. I'm excited to be with her.
Absolutely. So when you obviously have experience training, both sides of the basketball, what's the biggest difference between training men's and women's basketball, do you think?
So I think physiologically, we'll talk about that first, and we'll talk about a little bit cultural after. Physiologically, we can get away with a little bit more volume. We need to run a little bit more on the women's side, in my opinion, than the men do, because we're not going to adapt to the stimulus on the court. The running and jumping on the court isn't going to be enough stimulus for us to adapt. We're going to train a little bit heavier, I guess, in season to maintain their strength gains. So I feel like they'll lose it much quicker than the men will. People are going to want to talk about ACLs. Everything we do in our program is ACL preventative, whether it's a bench press to a kettlebell swing. We start with a heavy band progression around the knees, because that is such a problem. But I think I would do that with the men's team as well, because I do think it's a problem on the men's side as well. We look at it holistically. We don't spend time, doing a ton of clams, doing a ton of fire hydrants, doing a ton of things like that. But we train our big movements as part of our ACL preventative actions, and then we spend a lot of time with technique. On the cultural side, I don't know if there's much difference. I know men get after it. Our team gets after it. They love the weight room. They come in on extra days. Don't tell my coach, I guess I'm not allowed to report, but that's okay, because they really have a great work ethic. I think they'll want to know why, maybe a little bit more, where a man will, on the men's side, will kind of fight just because they're being told to, and they'll work a lot because of being told to, where women really want to know why they're doing what they're doing. And so we try to educate them as much as possible. And we've got a ton of results back off that, Right. We do a lot of belly breathing, so a very specific type of breathing to get our heart rates down, to get more parasympathetic and recover. And they'll go right to, we wear a Zephyr athlete monitoring system, so they'll go right to the screen, take their belly breaths, see their heart rates dropping, and really buy into that, where I think, a man might not, and I feel like I can say that because I am a man, and I know how hard-headed I was as a player.
Absolutely. Well, so what do you think, obviously we've talked a little bit about your programming overall, but when it comes to principles of what you're doing, what do you believe the principles of your program are?
Yeah, I think for us it's culture first. Everything's really, really cultural based. We want to make sure our kids understand our expectations are black and white. So at first, it's we're on them a lot to make sure they understand that. And from there, through our culture, we get to do a lot of really cool things because our kids know they're locked in. They know that they're going to work hard. So that expectation is clear and set, which gives us a lot of freedom to not have to overcoach effort. We can get into some really cool things. We program-wise, we're different places through different times of year. Postseason, we were high-volume linear this year, and then we got into some triphasic work this summer. We did an eccentric phase and an iso phase, And then our kids leave through our school year, so we did some heavy volume with clusters for our main lifts. Not necessarily by the book, and if you read triphasic and a triphasic purist is going to say, whoa, that's not triphasic. We just use it differently, and we have access to Cal Dietz and talking through him and some things. We can do things a little bit differently with that. We're going to bring him back and then hit some little bit of volume work just to touch him, and then we're going to get in some reactive work pre-season. And that's what we're going to kind of incorporate the triphasic thing. And then through the years, through the season, we look not just to maintain, we want to continue to gain strength. And again, our lifts are going to be a little bit different. We'll hit a 5-minute lift before every day of practice, and it might be kettlebell swings and band pull aparts. Depending on what day of the week it is, if it's day before a game, it might be glute bridge and planks, to be honest. It might be some push-ups, things like that, so they feel a little bit better. Our kids, they've said they feel better when they do curls. So I'll bring some black bands out before practice, and we'll have like arm farm. And a lot of our kids say they feel stronger, which is really good to hear. So we might do that. And then post practice, we'll lift twice a week. And it might be a 25, 30-minute lift, just big, trap bar, bench. We don't do Olympic lifts in our program. I know there's some purists out there that might chastise me for that, but it's one thing that we don't do much of. We might do some single arm variations. But our program our principles are we're going to train. We're going to be functional, we're going to hinge, we're going to squat, we're going to press, we're going to pull, and we're going to crawl. Those are really big fundamentals in our program.
All right. So, how do you believe, you have been so successful in kind of training, those top-tier athletes and, having a positive impact on the program at Minnesota?
And it starts with my coach. It really does start top up, and she gets really, really great kids that really want to work hard, and that's the first step. From there, I follow her vision with our culture, and we're lucky. We do get top tier athletes coming in. When I was at VCU, mid-major school, we got different style kids, and we have kids that really want to buy in and want to get better. We have, we've had 3 WNBA draft picks in the last 3 years, 2 being Big Ten Player of the Years and first round selections. So with that said, we get pretty good athletes to start with, and then we just work buy-in. Buy-in's huge, and once we buy in them, the relationship build with them, they buy into us as well, and their relationship build with us, which is really cool to see. As far as having a positive impact, it's great because a lot of our pros come back and train here. Whether it's Rachel Banham, she was here with her off season, Amanda Zalabi, it's really cool to have them come back. So you can tell just from that we're having a positive impact. And then seeing the growth of our players, not just physically but emotionally, socially. I think that's the biggest attribute to know that we're having a positive impact. If that answers the question.
No, absolutely.
A little bit of tangent.
If you could give some advice to, not just like, I think a lot of us get caught up in like trying to help young strength coaches when I think more so probably the people that watch these videos are people that have been doing this shit for a while. So,
right.
I think what are some advice you just give to coaches, in terms of being able to build a program around the athletes that you have? So you talked about, having a top tier athlete, but what if you don't? And being able to find a way to, build around and build a program around what you have and doing it in a special way.
One thing that I really love, Mickey Marotti said it at a conference somewhere, you get what you tolerate. I think have really high expectations no matter what level you're at. Have high expectations for your athletes, but not just your athletes yourself. We have a rule where we have to be tucked and tied, and I got that from Andrew Wilson, who was at Maryland at the time, but now he's at Colorado with the football staff, and that resonates with me because we're going to work. So our shirts are tucked in, our shoes are tied. We want to have a professional atmosphere, and we want to make, even when we're at Robert Morris, it was always crazy because Hammer would say, we want to make wherever you're at big time. So we treated Robert Morris just like we would treat Minnesota. We were on time, we were tucked and tied, we were making things as big time as possible. And you don't have to have everything in their mom. You don't have to have an Omega Wave, you don't have to have Zephyr, you don't have to have all that to have a high expectation of your student athletes and get what you tolerate. I mean, the little things matter. The little things, are you taking time for yourself? Are you recharging your batteries? Those matter as a coach. It's summertime right now. I know basketball just is either finishing their grind, taking a little break before school starts, or rolling right into it. But these are the times, the years where investing in yourself is huge. Even this podcast, for you and I to be able to do this, I've already learned a ton, and hopefully somebody else does. But
right.
I think that's the biggest time, is invest in yourself, stay the course, and have high expectations for you, your program, and for yourself, more importantly.
Well, that's great. That's great advice. Well, that concludes all of our questions, and I think that when we started this up, the biggest thing was I don't think anybody wants to sit and listen to something for for a really, really long time. So,
right.
You had some great answers, man. You had some great answers, and to everybody watching, if you have not, if you have not followed Ralph and all of his social media outlets, you're a fool. He puts out some great stuff. I have stolen things directly from you, for some drills and stuff that I do with our guys, just since I started here about 5 weeks ago. So thank you for that, giving back
absolutely.
to the community.
Anything I can do to help anybody, let me know.
So, well, thank you for coming on the show. If you need anything, you let me know. All right, and I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Same with you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yep.